privileged to welcome you all to this fourth edition of Orange City Literature Festival, organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation in association with GH Raisoni University, powered by Raisoni Group of Institutions. I am Rahul Trivedi, delighted to be your anchor for today's topic when I am with you by Durjoy Dutta in conversation with Meghna Pant. First book, of course, I love you, at the age of 21. 21, and of course, I love you.
My first book came out 15 years ago because sometimes I go to book signings and there are readers who are 14 and 15, and I'm like, you are younger than my first book. It is absolutely disgusting. Let me tell you, when I meet people who are fully functional adults and they tell me that I was born in 2003, I'm like, what? In 2003, I was in class 12th. And how are you so? So yeah, youth absolutely disgusts me. You know, all of you people, like, I'm just jealous. Now I'm getting so old, it appalls me. But yeah, my first book, came out. I wrote the first book in my second and third year of my engineering, and I only wrote it because I was a blogger, and blogging used to mean something entirely different. I used to go through my entire day, come back home, write about my day on a website, and send it to other blogger friends. So we used to be like a group of 50 people who used to read each other's blogs, and everyone used to tell each other that you are a great writer and you are a great writer. We all used to be like little Oprahs in our group. And yeah, you are a great writer. But I think I was the youngest in the group. And when people started telling each other that you should write a book, I took it very seriously. I was like, yeah, maybe I'm the best. I don't know. And so I wrote the book and I finished writing it thinking that it will not get published. Right? I was like, okay, this is everyone is telling me that you can do it, and let me see whether I can do it. I did it, that's it. But then I sent it across to publishers and one of them accepted it. And that seemed like the upper limit. I was like, now I've achieved everything that I wanted to. I had written a book at 21, it's getting published, that is it. My publisher, I remember, used to keep sending me mails that, Durjoy, please send us your bio, Durjoy, please send us your picture, we have to get this book published. I'm like, yeah, tomorrow. I'll just do it. Because for me, I had already won. You know, I never expected to get this far. Just the fact that the book is getting published was enough. So yeah, it was all. So a lot of writers have very touching stories about getting their first book published, how they had to run from pillar to post. And I don't. I wrote the book and it got published.
Wonderful. So before, of course, we want to applaud for him. Before my end, I'll allow me to ask one small question. How many engineers in the house? Give me a loud cheer. All right. Thank you so much. Engineering is one span of our life when our first year is mostly to think about M1, M2, M3. In our time, we used to say Mehbooba 1, Mehbooba 2, Mehbooba 3. You can really never impress them. All right. At that point in time, you started writing. Please share that chance.
No, I was also thinking about girls. I mean, that was predominantly what my life was at that point in time, and that's why my first book was also named, of course, I Love You Till I Find Something Better. Such a stupid name now to think of it, but that's what was happening to me and to people around me. So, and one of the reasons why I wrote my first book is because I thought that my life is more interesting than everyone around me. So. And yeah, I've always read books. So when you read a lot of books, at one point you think that, okay, I can write better than some of these guys who are writing. So yeah, I mixed both of them. That the fact that I thought my life was interesting, and the fact that.
Big applause for Durjoy. You guys have been holding that in, haven't you? So I'm going to be speaking to Durjoy for around 20-30 minutes about writers and writing and what's it really like to hold a career as an author in India. Just a couple of questions and just what it takes to be an author, to sort of represent an aspiration, to endure to entice to write compelling and marketable books. So I just wanted to start by asking you this, like, I don't know how many, I mean, all of you obviously know Durjoy, you've been following him on social media. And the amazing thing is authors historically, right? They were read but not seen. And now, of course, things have changed so much. And brands used to collaborate with TV stars or movie stars, then comedians. I think you're one of the first authors or the only authors who's like a mega influencer. So tell me, do you think authors have what it takes to become influencers, and what are the kind of skill sets that you really need, and how did you pull it all off? It's incredible how you've done this.
It's mostly an accident. So I remember back in 2006 when I was getting married, and Avantika told me that so you're getting married anyway. But Avantika, because she was hanging out with a lot of white people, she was like, "Where is my proposal?" And and we were getting married the next month. We were getting all the preps done. She was like, "No, I need a proposal." And then I did a very, at that point in time, Facebook was bigger and Twitter was bigger. Instagram was very small. I was like, okay, fine, I'll mobilize my smaller reader base on Instagram and make this into a thing where everyone will ask Avantika to marry me. So I started on Instagram, but it snowballed into something bigger. Then it went on Twitter and Facebook and it started trending. And my sister called. She was in Sweden, and she was like, "Durjoy, is this a marketing gimmick?" Because I was trending for like 3 days straight. so she was like, "Okay, have you paid anyone to do this?" So this has been like a trend in what I do on social media. I do stuff which somehow looks like I'm managing it. So when I started off writing, when my first book came out, of course, people started telling me cute, right? And that's the first time I actually saw myself as cute. So how many of you have read Of Course I Love You? Okay, great, but please buy the book, okay? I this is what I say everywhere. You don't have to read my books, please buy copies. You don't have to read.
Old one.
Oh, yeah. This is not that old. If you there are older versions. If you see the picture in it, I'm as far as cute as you can imagine. But you know what happens is that once you know someone, once you know that person, they slightly become better looking for you. So they were like, "Oh, you're cute." I was like, "Okay, I'm cute. What?" So for the next 4-5 years, I was like, "Okay, fine. Let's just run with this identity." So it took me actually 6 years to do my first book event. So I was like, I've written a book, but why would people want to meet me? The best version of me is already in the books. Why would people want to come and sit here, etc., etc.? So I did this book event in Bombay, and there was only one newspaper article, which is even one is great. One newspaper article which said the portrait of a cute author. And I was like, okay, now I'm a cute author. Okay, let's do this. And that sort of image sort of sustained for a little bit, and I wasn't doing anything. I was just like doing my normal stuff, putting up pictures, etc. All I did was, yesterday I had a shoot, and I was so awkward because they had like this 10-member crew who were clicking pictures. And I'm like, if you just need one picture, just ask me to look towards left and I'll smile. You'll get it. Because that's what I've been doing. People told me, your dimple is great. And before they told me, I did not know that having a dimple is a good thing. So it looks like I have managed this, that okay, now he's cute, now he's married to a woman who's like conventionally hot, whatever.
She's gorgeous. She's stunning.
And now he has a baby and he takes care of her, great dad. And now he's a family man. It looks managed, but it is what has happened to me. And it is what people have told me that, Durjoy, now you have become this. Okay, now I have become this, but none of it is sort of planned.
But listen, talking about that, you have to tell us, and please be honest, what is your daily routine like? How are you doing so many things? You're on social media, you're stellar at it, you're writing so many books, you're working on TV, and you're doing so many things, and you're such a hands-on dad. What is your daily routine? Do you work incredibly hard? How does it all work out? Or you just really gifted? I don't know how does it all come together? It seems impossible.
Definitely not gifted.
I think you are.
So I gave up television. After Raina was born, I effectively gave up television. Because I moved to Dubai because my wife works there, and I was like, okay, one person has to stay at home, and I think I was also the unambitious one of the two. I was like, okay, now I have a pretext. I have a cute child who's a distraction. Now I use her as a pretext and not work. And I was like, okay, I don't want to work in television anymore. But I think I used to be much faster in terms of writing books when I was younger. Now with a child, I think I've gotten much slower, and I think the biggest hit that has taken is that I've stopped reading that much. So I'm posting on Instagram, I'm writing books, I'm doing other things, but what I'm not doing is I'm not reading enough, or I'm not watching enough things on Netflix, Prime, whatever. Because okay guys, that is our work. Okay, for you it's leisure, for us it's work. So that is what's taken the biggest hit. So it looks like I'm managing time well, but if you open my Audible app, most of them are on stress management, how to manage time well, atomic habits. We're all there.
You're pulling it off very well, yeah. But tell me, for those aspiring authors, couple of questions I wanted to ask you is that, do you think having a big presence online, the whole meta, social media, do you think it spills over to your author life also? Does it help readers access you and therefore access your books? Does it help basically sell more books?
No, I'm on the fence regarding that. Like if you ask me that, okay, Durjoy, choose one of these two. That you're extremely famous on Instagram, but you're not selling books, but you're earning out of Instagram, or you're selling a lot of books, you don't have to be on Instagram. I'd say, okay, I'm selling books, I don't have to be on Instagram. Any day in, day out, I'll choose it. And I even do not think that being on Instagram and having a following sells a lot of books, because there are a lot of actors who are on Instagram and have like 40-50 million followers. They can't sell their movie tickets. So it's just not a direct correlation with just because someone is like with Instagram, it's slightly a hazy sort of a number, but you can see that with Twitter. Like there are so many Twitter celebrities who have come out with books and they have not worked. Yeah, because the format changes, right? So even if I'm like very interesting on Instagram, if I try to tell people please buy my book, they will not buy it. I was extremely lucky that my book came out in 2008 and then I stuck with it. So a lot of you guys will have it much tougher now. I mean, the competition is higher, etc., etc. And because back in 2008, I think we had assumed that every year we would find a bunch of new writers. But you'll get 5 writers in 2008, 5 writers in 2009, 2000. So by now you should be counting like 45 young authors, but you still just know the names of maybe 5. And all of those 5 people came in that 2008 to 2010 period. Ravindra Singh, Preeti Shenoy, etc. We all came during the same time. So luck plays a huge role. So if you're an aspiring writer, do not leave your job. Absolutely not. I mean, and secondly, this is what I say that if you're a writer, you're still going to write, right? You don't write to get published. You write to write. So find time, write a couple of books, and see how they do. Yeah. It's a very unpopular answer, but I don't get a writer's block. There are 2 questions that I don't like. One is, how did you get your first book published? Because writers generally have a very heart-wrenching story that I did this, did that, got rejected 20 times, and then finally, when I lost my shoes, my house, and my Wi-Fi got published. I don't have the story. And similarly, the writer's block. So, why I'm still writing is because I really like to write. Right? If you say, Durjoy, you have an empty day, please go and chill. I'll go and read a book and write. So for me, not writing is tougher than writing. I know, so I have a keen sense of what I'm writing is extremely bad, but I'm still going to write. Because what else would I do? I have nothing else to do. Writing is like the number one activity on my list every day. So I've never felt that. But writer's block, I understand where it comes from. It's just self-doubt stacked over each other. You write something, you don't like it, then you come back the second day, you write something, you don't like it, and then self-doubt sort of, builds up, and you're like, okay, I'm writing something, and it's no one's going to like it. That is writer's block. I think the quickest book that I ever wrote was my first book, and I'm assuming that you're a young writer, you're writing your first book, etc. First books are most easy to write, because you're thinking that no one's going to. I'm new and no one's going to read it, etc. Because that's what I thought. I think, okay, I'm writing a book. This itself is an achievement that I'm putting some words on paper. So if you are writing a first book, tap into that. And don't expect your first book to get published. Just expect to finish it. So yeah, best of luck.
Also, I think don't be too critical of your first draft, right? I think writing is rewriting, so I think that's where we get lost. We get too in over our heads and that's where writer's block comes in. So I find stepping away, like going traveling or stepping away from the manuscript really helps. So take a break and cut yourself some slack. I think that really.
Also, be prepared to hate all of your books. I hate all of my books. I don't like any of them.
Every time I tell Durjoy I'm reading a book, he's like, no, please don't. That happens though. That happens to all of us, yeah.
First of all, Mr. Durjoy, I'm a really big fan of yours, and my question to you is that along with writing books, you have also worked in writing TV series like Kuch Rabbi Pyar Ke Aise Bhi. So, is it smart for a young writer to go into different fields of writing at the same time? Like, while I'm writing something else, to also be writing my books and short stories and poetry books. Is that smart for a writer?
Absolutely. I've written for television a lot, right? And I've written for Kuch Rabbi Pyar Ke Aise Bhi. How many of you have seen Kuch Rabbi Pyar Ke Aise Bhi? Kuch Rabbi Pyar Ke Aise Bhi is still a decent Sazbahoo show, but I've written verse, and I wanted to write for even worse. Like one of my long-standing dreams was to write for Sasural Samarkand. So, there is a lot of money in television writing. There is a lot of money, and the kind of security that gives me is any writer is unparalleled. And secondly, I think after I'd written for a lot of places, I think I read some writers say in an interview that write everything that you can. It doesn't matter what format you're writing in, because every format has something to teach you. So what I learned, so let's take an example of Sasural Samarkand, right? So Game of Thrones, we were all disappointed in season 9, right? Season 8 or season 9? Season 8? Yeah, so it was so bad, right? But now imagine if Game of Thrones had to go on for 200 seasons. It would have been ruined. So Sasural Samarkand has been going on for like 1500, 2000 episodes. So what is still sustaining that show? The only thing that's sustaining that show is when they created the characters, they made characters in such a way that could last that long. So that is what I learned from my television journey as well, that in any book, create a character who can give you a sequel, and then another book, and then another book. So every format has something to teach you. So yeah, like even Instagram stories. So I take Instagram a little bit seriously. And I started taking it seriously because I realized that this is also an opportunity to tell a short story, right? So what I started doing was, now I do it differently, but the best engagement I got on Instagram is when I would take pictures through the day and then create a story out of it and write it in like. And I used to make sure that I used to keep the smallest font so that I make sure that people are reading it. They are not they're not looking at the stories for the picture, but for what's written. So every format has its learnings. So yeah,
Thank you so
write
much.
everything. Yeah, thank you.
The girl at the back, glasses. The girl at the back. उसको दे दो बेचारी को. She's been holding up her hand for a while.
Hello everyone. So I just had a small question. Earlier you mentioned that right now you've been really busy with kids and everything. So it has been like say like you're listening to podcasts about stress management, time management. So there could be some something you might be facing on an emotional level, on a mental health level. So do you think things that are going on in your mind on an emotional level, like for example your mental health, does it influence the way you write? Like, is there some sort of thing which will be seen in your writing as well? Like, if you're not feeling that good, and at that time you sit and write about things, do you think your writing is influenced at that point of time?
Of course, absolutely. So I had like zero mental health issues until say 2.5 years ago, and it happens to every outsider. If you do not have a mental health issue, it seems like fiction. That people have anxiety. You see them, you're just nervous. You don't have anything. But once you're in it, it is all there is to life. Once I started getting anxious about things, I was like, यही है जिंदगी बस. Anxious होना ही है. बाकी सब is like they're just auxiliary characters, but anxiety is your main thing. And so when I was writing When I'm With You, which took like a couple of years to write, in the middle, I gave a sense of anxiety to the main character because that was also happening to me. So as I experience things, of course, it will come in the book. But my older books, I had no problems with mental health, and it seemed like people were making a big deal out of it. That it doesn't exist, or like, but it happened and it came in my books. So, yeah.
Thank
you.
Contradictory opinion or a question that a writer like there one side of it says that a writer shouldn't write for themselves and the other one says that a writer should write for their audience. So what would you like suggest people like me who have not written a thing but want to write for people? What's your opinion on that? Like, should a writer write for themselves or should they write for their audience?
And in the entire audience, there is no one like you. If you're writing for yourself, there are people who would want to read the exact thing that you want to read. Right? So it's a very good question because I'm a commercial writer. So a lot of people ask me, people tell me that you're writing for an audience. I'm like, yeah, of course I'm writing for an audience. Otherwise, I would write a diary, no? But the corollary to this is that that my diary would read exactly the same, which means what I want to read is also what others want to read. So I'm not sure. I mean, when you say that you're just writing for yourself, I'm sure you'll find your audience who's just like you, who would want to read just the kind of things that you would want to read.
Durjoy, I can ask a very quick question. Thank you so much for that. Is there anything different you're doing in marketing your book? Because I think that's something, nowadays it's become easy to get published thanks to the advent of self-publishing. But finding readers has become very difficult. So publishing your book is easy, selling your book is very difficult. And the problem is if you don't sell, then the publishers will not pick up your next book. So it's become a huge dilemma. So do you think there's anything you're doing differently or any advice again you have for even published authors on how to market themselves? Because we're not marketing geniuses. There are very few of us who are good at it. So anything you think you're doing different or better or extra than anybody else?
So not the right person to ask this question because I have had like a steady audience for a really long period of time. Although there's an entire churn audience that has happened in the last couple of years. So people who had read my books in 2008, they are not reading anymore, but I found a new audience of readers. So I don't know how that has happened, but for someone who's extremely new, who has just come into the market, I would just say be relentless with marketing your books. I think that is one thing that I used to do when I'm pretty relentless. I mean, I keep telling my guys at Penguin that my marketing plan is to bully people into buying my books. Just keep telling them buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, and just to get me off their back. Some people do. So, but even when my first book came out, I remember that there was no Facebook, Instagram, etc. There was all. I used to make sure that everyone who's even remotely connected to me knows about this book, and I send them everything about the book. So you have to be a little, and this is in contrast to what I thought about the book. I did not think that the book was very good, but I was like, now I have written it. Now it's done. Now people need to read it. Now I have done my work. Now please, it's the ball is in your court. Please go and buy it. And I think one of the things that worked in my favor when I wrote my first book is also I had a connection with my readers. So I used to be obsessed with my readers. So because I was very surprised. So when someone used to tell me that Durjoy, we have read Of Course I Love You, and there was Google chat, and I was like, okay, so tell me everything. So you went to a bookstore, and now you had so many books, but you picked up mine. What made you pick up the book? And I used to have like 2-hour conversations with taking me through that entire experience of. So what happened was an event, and I used to, like, for 6 months of my life, I just did that. I just talked to my readers, and they sort of also became like the megaphones that okay, Durjoy is a nice guy, please go and buy his book, etc., etc. So that's what I did. I mean, and then of course once I had a readership, even now I'm extremely scared about people who have not read my books knowing me. So I only want people who have read my books to know me. That's it. So even now my marketing plans are just targeted towards people who have read my earlier books. I don't want any new readership. The older readership is great.
Any guys in the house? Yes.
Good evening, sir. First of all, I'm a big fan of yours, and I had a question. One fine morning, a producer came to your house and he's saying he'll adapt your book and make a movie. And coming back to that day that your draft is getting published, then how will you call this journey, like publishing a draft and a book is getting adapted? Like exciting one or stressed one or beautiful one or adventurous one?
Firstly, a producer will call me to his office.
So you are that famous that he come to your house?
Yeah, he will not come to my house. and secondly, a producer never reads a book, right? There have been so many times that they call me and they're like, Durjoy, we are very interested in your books. Why don't you come to our office? I was like, yeah, I'll come to your office. And my assumption is they would have read like at least one book, and I was sitting there and the producer is sitting and there are a couple of more lackeys sitting and they're like, okay, Durjoy, now narrate all your 19 books to us.
They actually do that right away. Gone through the same thing.
And the most difficult part is, so I wrote my first 6 books in a haze. So I wrote my first book, Of Course I Love You, huge hit, and then my publisher started calling me and telling me that okay, Durjoy, now your first book is a hit, even if you write like a book with a blank pages, no, is going to work. Blank pages थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो जाता है, थोड़ा कुछ भी लिख देता हूँ. So my first few books are actually photocopies of each other. So when someone asks me, like a producer asked me that narrate the first 3 books, and I was like, they're all the same. It's the same story over and over again. So A, it has not happened. B, there is an assumption that I am not getting my books made into movies. You have to understand in this entire system that books getting made into movies, I have zero power, right? If they pick up a book and want to make it, great, but I can't make them make a movie. But if it gets made, good enough. But having said that, I don't look forward to it in a sense, because the other part that has happened is that producers have come up and they said that okay, executive of ours has read your book. Why don't you write us a screenplay of the same book? Now I can't write a screenplay of my own book, because now the book has no fun for me. I've written it, I spent so much time on it. Now the same story I'm writing in a screenplay, it gives me no creative satisfaction. I'm like, instead, if you think that I can write, I will give you a fresh story. But don't make me write a screenplay of the same book that I wrote 15 years ago. It's extremely boring for me.
What was the whole process? How are you feeling? You're on this whole whirlwind tour. It's looking so glamorous, so much fun, very exhausting. How's it been, the entire process?
It's not glamorous. How many of you follow me on Instagram? How many of you see that I'm putting hotel posts every day? That is, okay guys, you have to realize that after checking into the third, fourth hotel, I was tired of it. Okay, it is just the same. It's just that we did this entire book tour in collaboration with a lot of hotels. So I have to say, every room that I go to, oh, beautiful room, oh, beautiful view, oh, so great food. I was just sick and tired of it. But yeah, it was the book tour came as a surprise to us, because when we started this book tour, which was like right off COVID, we started planning it. So people at Penguin and even I were like, no one comes to book tours, book signings anymore. So let's do only 4 cities. And I'm like, if this is going to be my last book, let's do 20.
Wow.
So that's what we ran with. And when we started, we realized a lot of young people are coming back to bookstores, which is so strange. Because in the pandemic, I got addicted to my phone. So I was like, okay, Instagram reel. Switch tab, YouTube. This was all that I was doing, and I thought everyone is doing the same. But when I started my book tour, a lot of sales people started telling me that the younger people are coming back to bookstores. Yeah. So, and younger people are generally ahead of us. So
Very aware.
Very aware. So, and if they download their phone and coming back to bookstores, it was great, and that's sort of what gave me the energy to sort of keep doing it. So not glamorous, extremely exhausting, but extremely humbling to see so many young people reading the book and liking it, even though the book has nothing to do with it. The book is about a girl who wants to start a childcare system which is more accessible to everyone, and the idea came because my daughter is 5.
Anyway, his daughter was born on the same day as me, 24th July.
Yeah.
And remember, you were very happy. You were like, good, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, Divya, she's a Leo. And I'm a Leo. And you were like, yes.
I mean,
She has good things lined up.
I don't like Leos. But so whenever I see her, so she also looks a little bit like me. Which is like the strangest experience, because a lot of my guy friends, they say, oh, your daughter is so cute. And I'm like, she looks like me. And then they have nothing to say. So I think of her like a mini version of me, and then someone says she's a Leo. But I don't like Leo. So I'm like, but then
Leos are awesome. Guys, who's a Leo in this place? Aren't we the best? Now you know why he doesn't like Leos.
No, so Leos are very headstrong, and they get their way, etc. And because I'm an introvert, I'll move out of the way. So that's why I don't like Leos. So, but when my daughter was born, I realized that kids take up a lot of your time. It is an extremely time-consuming affair.
So when I had my second daughter, I messaged Durjoy that I had my second girl, and he's like, you must be crazy. Everybody's congratulating him. Durjoy's like, you must be crazy.
So every book launch that I go to, I see a lot of young women, and I tell them, please do not have kids, okay? I know it's not going to make a difference. You're still going to go ahead and have kids, but I tell you why you should not have kids. Is because, see, firstly, it's a risk. Right? I keep telling Avantika, if Raina wasn't cute, I would have been an extremely different father. I would not have taken care of like an uncute child. But also because the society is structured in such a way that the guy will earn more than you, and when you have a kid, the woman will have to step back, etc. Take care of the kid. And in our case, the opposite happened because I was staying at home anyway, so it was expected that okay, Durjoy, you will take care of this. So it's and see, I think earlier things were slightly different because parents used to have like non-exciting jobs. Now we derive a huge part of our identity from wherever we are working. To just step back for at least 5 years. 5 years is when they sort of reach that age that they are sort of okay. But to step back for 5 years, it's a huge sacrifice. I mean, earlier it might have been a little bit easy, but now it's extremely difficult. So all the young girls who are here, get married to a guy who has a very young sibling so that he knows what it takes. Right? And if it's a work from home dad, even better.
True. So great, guys. Thanks so much for joining us, and a big applause for the amazing Durjoy.